Welcome in. Welcome to the Women's Wellness Network, and welcome to our guest today. Hello, Saril. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing amazing. I'm so happy to be here with you today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for asking. And yeah, it's really nice to meet you. I've read a little bit about you on your website, and you have a big story. And I'm really happy to have you here to share it with the women because, there's a lot of us out here that are, not too sure what's going on with ourselves. So why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit? But first, please tell us where you are in the world.
Oh, I am in Florida. Yes, and
What?
I was born in New York City, but I moved here about 17 years ago. So, yes, it's nice and rainy over here.
Uh, but you fared okay after the hurricane situation. You're out okay where you are?
Thankfully, yes.
Oh,
I there were some
yeah.
tornadoes around 20 minutes away from my house, but we didn't get hit. We've been very blessed while living here.
Oh,
Yeah.
lucky, very lucky. Wonderful. Well, it's a beautiful part of the country to live in, that's for sure. There's no denying that. It's very popular. So, yeah, go ahead. Why don't you just start off and give us a little introduction as to who Surreal is?
Great. So I'm Saril Vasquez. I am a multi-certified functional medicine practitioner that is obsessed with reversing hair loss naturally. It is the main focus in my practice. Of course, we end up resolving other issues like loss of libido, lack of sleep, inability to lose weight, and other things of that nature. But for the most part, what we're doing is really focusing on using diet, using lifestyle, and using targeted supplements to bring the body back into a place where it is able to naturally regrow hair. And so, whenever I talk about myself, I love to start with a picture, if that's okay.
Yes,
And
please.
this is what I used to look like. And that was back in 2020. I had like scarring alopecia. They had diagnosed me with androgenetic alopecia. One point they thought I had AGA, but I just had thinning all over. It was just very difficult. I look different now, but I was 4 years ago, and it was very difficult at the time because I had just with the man I thought I was going to marry, and I left because he cheated on me with a girl that was 10 years younger. Okay. So I was just like, okay, there's no way I'm leaving him and then I'm going to go age like this when he was cheating on me with someone a decade younger. And so I had this moment where I was trying desperately to get myself to love the way I looked again, but I was stuck because I said a lie that a lot of women have been saying to themselves with this condition. And that lie is, I've tried everything.
Mm,
And it wasn't
right,
until, right?
right.
And it wasn't until I went to some personal development event where the speaker, he questioned that thought. And I realized, oh my gosh, there's no way I could have tried every single thing at every single time and every single combination. What about the things that aren't even created yet?
Right.
So I went on this journey and I said, you know what? I had a career in medicine. I worked for specialty pharmacies and diagnostic imaging, and that was about 10 years of my life, going into doctors' offices, building relationships with the providers.
Right.
And as a friend of them, they were my friends because I brought them tons of cookies. I went to them and I said, hey, remember me? I brought you the cookies. Like, it's time for you to help me. And their response was, I'm sorry, there's nothing we could do. So I had a choice. Like, am I going to listen to what they said? Or am I going to decide that even if it hasn't been done before, even if I have to pave the way, I'm going to make it to the other side, and so thank you.
Love it.
And I remember I had gotten to this point where I had less hair falling out. I had regrowth in some bald spots. The bald spots that I had another one here, but I still had the thinning all over, and it was just very severe. And I'll show you one more picture so you see what I'm talking about. You could even see how sick I was because I had dark circles around my eyes. But
Yeah, right.
it was just very see-through, like you could just completely see
Yeah.
through it. And I couldn't get rid of the scarring. And so I had this practice where I would wake up in the morning and the first thing I did was go to my skull and try to move it. So you can see now my skull is very mobile. It can move pretty easily. But at the time, it was like a rock, so stiff. And I knew that was scar tissue there that was making it so stiff. And for as long as it was that stiff, there was no way that I would be able to get blood that was rich in nutrients and oxygen to nourish the follicle and thicken it again. And so I did that, and it was so stiff. And I looked up into the heavens and I said, God, please help me. I know that there's like something else I haven't figured out yet. Can you just please tell me? And like that moment, I went to my phone and I started, searching searches I had done a million times before. But this time I found different things. And like I was just like, oh my God, I think I'm onto something. And I applied the new information, and boom, the floodgates far as how quickly I was getting results, how aggressive the results were. And that's how I figured out how to break down scar tissue, which would they say, like, if you have scarring alopecia, there's no cure. It's over. AGA was something else. If you have that, there's no cure. It's over. And, by the grace of God, I not only was able to do that for myself, but for my clients as well. And I have women of all ages. I started my hair loss journey when I was 24. It took me 10 years to figure it out. So like I had hair loss for uh, from 24 to 32. And then from 32 to 34, I spent $75,000 that I did not have.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
level of commitment was unreal. I mean, I had to
Right.
refinance my home.
I hear you, sister. Good
I
for
had to
you.
get a car that didn't have mold in it. I had to
Oh,
do, I had to get balance transfers on my credit cards. I did everything possible just to I spent dollars on hyperbaric oxygen therapy alone. I mean, I just was going for it, but um but the funny thing is that I spent that, and then I found a supplement that you can basically even buy on Amazon, that it's like liquid oxygen used to kind of nourish your body. And so I went from spending 20,000 to $20, you
oh,
know,
geez. That's a big difference.
yeah, to try to help my body be more oxygenated. And so my clients that come to me for help, like I was saying before, they're everywhere from in their early 30s all the way to menopausal ages, 50, 60 years old. And so I had hair loss for 8 years before, while I was suffering. Then it took me 2 extra years to figure it out. And so now from 34 to 38, my current age, I've been just progressively uh, going from that to this.
Right? Yeah, you look amazing. I mean, even your skin and everything, like you look healthy and radiant, and yeah, your hair looks fantastic. So yeah, you obviously you got onto the right thing. You figured out, you cracked a code. Now, not everybody has the patience or the time or the energy or the finances to go all the way and keep going. So I appreciate that you did that, because I know how hard it is to, just not give up and figure out what it is that's going to make you feel better. And then you can give it to the world. And that's what you're doing,
And they don't have to spend $75,000.
right? Right?
Yeah,
Oh my
it's
goodness.
it's truly an honor to be able to pour into the lives of the women that I meet. Whether I'm offering them just basic advice that I do out of my heart at no cost. Like I tell my community all the time, don't eat sugar, don't eat gluten, don't eat corn, don't eat rice, don't eat dairy, at least for 21 days. And then when you reintroduce those things, you will see how they make you feel. And you will start understanding that you have control more than you think on how your body is responding and the symptoms that you're having. Our body is just a machine that reacts to its stimulus.
Right.
And what we're eating, what we're drinking, what we're putting on our skin, what we're inhaling, all of those things play a giant role on the symptoms that we're having.
So true. Oh my goodness. And I think sorry, I was going to say a lot of people don't recognize that they go together, right? Until you start removing things from your diet or from your things you're putting on yourself, you don't realize because we are so crazily overloaded with everything. And yeah, taking that even moment to stop to go, okay, wait a second. I need to do something different. Like that takes a bit of cognition to say I need some help.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I recently just hosted a 21-day challenge for my coaching cohort. And as a group, we decided, no, I went 40 days. They went 21. We did like no sugar, gluten, dairy, corn, or rice. The only sweetness I had was from monk fruit or sweet potatoes for the last 20 days. The first 20 days, I did have sweet plantains. And I also had whenever I made a green juice or a red juice with a bunch of, I would put in a little bit of fruit as well and juice it. But that was it as far as the sweetness was concerned. And it what that does is it creates this capability for your body to heal because you don't keep throwing fire at or I should say wood at the flames.
Right.
And I had clients that went through that. They didn't do any supplements at all. They didn't even they did some lifestyle practices, but they didn't do any supplements at all. And they still had less out.
Ugh, that's, it's really amazing. It doesn't take that much to make a difference. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy. Okay, you work with women. I know you don't have like a whole bunch of time to spend with us today, so I want to make sure we get on all that stuff. Okay, so when you work with women, what would be the first thing that if somebody came to you, say with, they're having some hair loss, what would be the first thing that you suggest? Is that the removal of the things, or how do you decide? Or is everybody just totally different?
I have a process that I take my clients through, and the reason I do that is because there's a method to getting your body to a place where it can getting your body to a place where we can reverse engineer a version of you that is able to prioritize regrowing healthy hair. In order to bring that version of you to life and have it exist, we need to take a look at what were all of your true root causes. So even though, for instance, I was labeled with AGA, and at one point they thought it was PCOS, and then scarring alopecia because I had like all this scar tissue and all this other stuff, that wasn't my root cause.
Right.
That were thrown at me because the medical community needs that for insurance reasons. They need diagnosis codes and things of that nature. And I know that firsthand very well because I worked, very closely in that community for a long time. But what really was the issue for me was I had birth control in the form of a patch and I took it off. And the minute I took it off at the age of 24, I became estrogen dominant because my body was used to not producing as much progesterone. And then estrogen, oh, I know what to do. I'm crazy proliferating. And when you become estrogen dominant, your body gets to a point where it has an inability to detox. And that has to do with the role that estrogen plays with bile and with your gut health. And then that made me have a lower immune system because my gut became leaky
Uh,
because estrogen dominance has a relationship with candida, which is normally a commensal bacteria. We all have candida. It's a fungi. We all have that, but it overgrew. And then it made holes in my stomach, which made my gut leaky. And so I also had exposure to mold. And I also had heavy metals in my mouth. I had amalgam fillings and they were taken out improperly. And so there were a lot of different, what I call triggers in my life that set me up for that fall. And taking off my birth control patch kind of started rolling everything into motion. But one day I washed my car and I live in Florida. It's very humid. And I hadn't been driving for very license when I was 20 years old. Because in New York City, you just walk and take the train. So I had washed the car. I paid for a shampoo, and I left the windows up and I left it in the garage. And the next day, my car smelled. And I was driving around with a moldy car for years. And I was an outside sales rep. So that was slowly poisoning me. And then you get on the different medications. I had gotten on spironolactone at one point, and it did work to a certain extent. Like I didn't get the scarring to disappear, but I did get thicker hair, but it gave me horrible side effects. I had halitosis to the point that I could not do my job. People didn't want to talk to me. My breath was kicking so bad.
Oh no. Oh,
Yeah.
horrible. Oh, that's so bad. Well, that's sometimes the thing. Those the side effects are usually worse than the actual thing that you're trying to um, fix or put the band-aid over top of. So yeah, how terrible to have to go through that. You can't do your job like that, that's for sure.
And I couldn't date. It was like, do I want to date bald? Do I want to date with stinky breath? I was so stuck. And then it says, type, what was it? Category C, birth defects was a risk. And I hadn't had children. So that was
Yes.
something.
Yeah,
And I
that's
will say
scary.
that, yeah, that was scary. And I will say, just in case anyone's wondering, I am married now to a wonderful husband. So the story didn't end with a sad ending. It's a good story, ending, I should say. But yeah, so I realized that was not a long-term solution for me, and so I had to figure out a different way. And I'm glad I did, because it's in my opinion better to work with the body to help the body heal itself, instead of introducing chemistry that is going to alter the natural function. Because if my body was creating elevated DHT, which it was,
Right.
the question is not how do we stop the DHT to reverse the hair loss? The question is, why is it elevated in the first place?
Exactly. Exactly. That is that is all of it. That is everything. Because if we need to get to the root of the thing so we can stop it from happening, so we don't have to take that stuff. And the pandemic thing that we had, because I was going through a lot of health challenges at the time, and medications were being, here, take this, take this, take this. And then the little scare came that said, well, maybe we won't be able to get our medication. And that was just another one of those lights that went on saying, if medications are not available in the world and we don't know how to take care of ourselves to get out of whatever situation we're in, how is that going to work? It's not. So I didn't want to be dependent on any sort of medications. I wanted to be able to figure it out for myself, exactly as you've done. And you get to a place where you're like, okay, I got this, and I don't need that. I don't need that stuff because it is just a band-aid. And of course, it does help for a short-term period. It's great because especially for a woman who has hair loss, that's quite devastating. I told you I went through cancer. Um, just prior to that, I had my hair falling out quite a bit. I was under a lot of stress. My marriage was ending, and yeah, it was falling out drastically. And probably had I not, gotten the diagnosis of cancer, I could have ended up, with alopecia. I could have ended up with who knows what. But the point is that there's little triggers that we maybe don't want to see or don't want to notice, and we need to start really looking at those, I think, to make these things work, so we can work with them, so we can figure out what it is, and that we can actually work with them. So you do functional medicine, you have your women's group or your group on the Facebook. Is it just for women, or is it for men too? Your group?
Oh, I mean, I allow women and men into it. Am I able to say
Okay.
the name?
Sure, yeah, of course.
It's called reversing hair loss naturally. So it's like, specifically for that function that it exists, to make people more aware that you can reverse hair loss naturally. I do let men in, but I work mostly with women at this point.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I mean, it's also nice for men who are maybe have a partner that is going through it, and they can support, they can get more information and understand in a better way, be more supportive when they have the knowledge that goes behind it, what's going on with their partner or their child, or anybody, their friend even, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a great idea to have the mixture of both to for that support.
especially if they know their wife is going to have an increase in their libido, and feel happy and stop
Right?
complaining about her hair. Like, they're just like, oh, this is the win-win. But you had asked me for the process or how I help people, and I don't think I ever finished that point, so I'll just quickly
Yes,
go
please
over it.
tell me.
But yeah, people come in and I have them do an intake where I ask them 85 questions, which seems like a lot, but it's necessary because I'm asking them everything from were they born vaginally all the way to did they get, that virus that was going around and the medication for it.
Right, right.
And then I paint a picture for them where I'm identifying, like I did for myself, what all of their real true root causes are. And then I can say, okay, because you have this symptom and that symptom, that is showing me that these systems, the endocrine system, the nervous system, the digestive system, needs to be supported. And so then, we come to terms on what are the diet changes, the lifestyle changes, and the very targeted supplement changes that we're going to make to get to that version of themselves where their nervous system is not always in fight or flight, where they have enough stomach acid, where they don't have leaky gut, where they have regular bowel movements, where all of the things that are necessary to create a body that can heal itself. And so I use functional medicine in the sense that I'm thinking there's a strand that gets created when hair stems go into the follicle, and then blood that is rich in oxygen, in nutrients, gets there, and then it grows. And it'll stay just like that if it's healthy for 2 to 8 years. And then it'll move up to the scalp superficially where it's able to fall out. And it is only doing that because there's hair under there that is germinating, and there's a new hair that's going to come out and replace it. And that is the normal cycle of how hair is supposed to grow. And so I have to think clinically, what is making this person not have enough oxygen to be able to have enough to spread it over to their hair? Are they chronically inflamed? Because of inflammation requires a lot of oxygen, or is their gut working properly where they can absorb the nutrients? Do they have leaky gut so they have a lot of food allergies, so something that's supposed to be nutritious is a poison to them? Do they have scar tissue that needs to be broken down? If they have DHT elevated like I did in my, it was actually because I was inflamed. And I have this genetic superpower where my body will create more testosterone to modulate inflammation. And it knows that if it creates DHT, that is not going to get changed into another hormone.
Right.
And so it'll create more of that. Now, it has unfortunate side effects because when you have elevated DHT, you can have elevated prostaglandins. And there's new studies that show that that's actually what's causing the hair loss and the miniaturization. It's the prostaglandins more than the actual DHT. So there's so much that we're trying to cover in this area of science. I think there's been a wave of interest because of the virus that was going around and like a lot of people having this problem now. I think that there's been a desire to create a medication, but I think it could be done so much better naturally than with medication. And so there isn't enough funding like in the medical realm, to intrigue enough interest. I think
I lose you. I
they're
don't
trying to
know.
get that blockbuster drug. Oh yeah, you were frozen, but you're
I was
back. Was
frozen.
that was
Okay, I'm back. Great. Okay.
I, was I frozen?
No, I was just frozen. I couldn't hear you either. So you said
Oh, I see.
the
Okay.
blockbuster drug.
Yeah, yeah. So they're because they can make $1 billion from a blockbuster drug.
Oh yeah.
So, it just takes like some company that's interested in investing or like a rich person that has a problem for the funding to become available for big pharma to step in and try to do something. And they are trying to out now that they know that prostaglandins potentially are the reason. But yeah, as far as helping people, it's a lot about looking at what they're eating, changing that, looking at their symptoms, and then trying to get to a version of them that doesn't express all those symptoms, and then like helping them identify this is what makes my hair loss worse: mold, dust, sugar, whatever. This is how I live my life in a way where I get to maintain my results once I get results that I like from that to this. And then this is another way that I could live where I can progressively get better results. And that's, whatever supplement, whatever lifestyle practices, detoxing rituals, whatever the case is. And so that's how I help people.
That is amazing. That's amazing. You have a lot of things in your toolkit, and I love how you work. I love even the 85 questions. I think that's thorough and interesting because a lot of places don't ask. They just ask for, this small amount of what's happening with you and not the rest of it because we are one whole being. So everything should kind of work together. So, anyways, if our women would like to work with you, how can they find you?
I invite them to go to my website, which is bellcanics.com, and I'll spell that for you. It's B as in boy, ELLE, which is the word bell. And then we're writing the word mechanics, but without the me, because we're replacing the me with the bell. So it's Bellcanics, BELLECHANICS. And what that means is a person that is mastering her body mechanics to reveal her inner bell. And so
Love
when
it.
they go there, there's a training immediately when you get to my website. The first thing you'll see is a training, where you learn about the top three mistakes that women are making when they're trying to reverse their hair loss naturally. Because some people do think, well, if hair loss is reversible naturally, how come there are not a bunch of people, reversing their hair loss naturally? And well, a couple of y'all are making some mistakes, which is not your fault. It's just, you've been trained to think a certain way, and you'll see in the training. And then there's an opportunity to take a quiz on there where you can see the likelihood of you being able to reverse your hair loss naturally according to the results in my practice and what we've had success with. And there's a blog. There's a lot of resources there on my website, but yeah, you can see some podcasts I've been on and things of that nature. So feel free to go and check it out. And if you feel ready to take the next step, definitely go ahead and you know what I'll do for your community actually. So there is a call that uh, is offered at the end of the quiz, and it's a hair symptom decoding. So they fill out a bunch of symptoms on a tracker, and then they send it to me, and I help them decode it and whatnot. So typically there's a charge for $55, but if they use the code consult, then that gets waived. So I'll do that for your community,
Amazing.
buddy who's on there who wants to check that out.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. How generous of you. That's what a beautiful offering. Thank you so much. I'm sure there will be people who check it out because, you know, because people want to know. And if you're having a problem, then, you know, there's a little way to look without feeling embarrassed or feeling shy or feeling, you know, self-conscious, right? Just get on there and just you. It's just you that they have to talk to, and that's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm so glad that you had me on today. It was such a pleasure to connect with you and pour into your audience.
Well, thank you so very much. And Women of the Women's Wellness Network, you can reach out to Saril. You can check out her stuff on the in the comment section. We'll make sure we put it all there for you to uh, look for your look at it at your own pleasure, at your own time, and maybe check out her group. And even if you're maybe you have a male in your life who's interested in that also, we're all in this together. And yeah, point it out to somebody else if you feel like they could maybe use the information. And yeah, until next time, of course, be well. And thank you, Cyril. Thank you so much for coming today. It was really lovely to meet you.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much for having me.